Hello and welcome back to my channel English is Easy, and I hope that you are all doing very good. And as the winter season is also coming, the weather is really very charming, and I hope that this time will energize you and make you more interested in studying language. Though it's a little bit boring, but I will try to make it more. Show you today is that what is verb. You all have know about verb, you have all ever heard about verb. What verb is, because it is the most important thing in our English language, and we should know about it, because without verb you cannot make any kind of sentence correctly or grammatically correct. So therefore we have to learn verb, and obviously its kinds, because there are different kinds of verb, which I am going to tell you everything, each and everything in the most detailed way, so that you can understand this thing and can solve the questions more easily. So first of all, what is a verb? A verb is something is like an action. In a sentence, in a sentence there is a subject, and that subject is performing some action, and obviously that action is implied on a object. Otherwise, the sentence will not be correct. So transfer of action from the subject to the object is done by whom? Is done by verb. Because this is the most pivotal position which plays the most important role in a sentence. Because if you cannot give the correct form of verb or cannot use the correct form of verb, then the sentence will not be correct. So we have to know this. So therefore, a verb is an action. It plays the action in a sentence. It shows how the subject is performing its action, or it's implying its action over to a object. So this is the most important thing. Let's see what a verb is by a simple definition. So what it is shown, that the verb is a word or a combination of words that indicates the action or a state of being, a condition. That means it indicates that whether the subject is in a static position, or the subject is doing something, or the subject is in a state of being. So these are the things which is being shown or indicated by the verb. That means, suppose for example, she eats, he plays, they work. These are the things. If I give you a complete example, they work on Sunday. So this is also an example. So how it is shown that how the subject is transforming the action, or how the subject is doing the action. So these are the things which you have to remember. So this is a very simple example, and how you can remember these things. But the verb has some kinds. What are they? So the kinds of the verb are like, if I draw a line like this, what comes first? Number one, finite verb. This is number one. Number two is non-finite. Then comes action verb. Within the action verb, there are two different things. Number A is transitive. Number B is intransitive. Then this is number 2, this is number 3, and number 4 is auxiliary linking verb. And number 5 is auxiliary verb. So these are the kinds of verb which you have to remember every time when you are doing your sentences. So first of all, what are they? What are these verbs? What will be the finite verb, or what is non-finite, or what is action verb, or what is finite verb? Finite verb is something where the verb acts according to the number and person of the subject. So you have to remember this thing. Next, what happens? What is non-finite? Non-finite verb does not acts on the number of person. Rather, it acts as an adjective or an adverb. And what is action verb? There are two things, transitive and intransitive. You have to remember the transitive always have a direct object. On the other hand, the intransitive verb do not have any direct object. Okay, you have to remember by these things. What is linking verb? Linking verb always connects the subject with that of its complement. Some qualities of it, that means complement. Whether it's good or bad or something like that, that's complement. It connects the subject with that of its complement. What is auxiliary verb? Auxiliary verbs are the be verbs. They has, have, am, is, are, was, were. So auxiliary verb, what does it performs? It acts as a helping verb. It helps the main verb to say something, or it helps the sentence to express its meaning. Last is modal verb. Both of them are similar. Auxiliary verb and modal verb both are similar. Modal verb, modals, by using modals, they also shows that it is also performing same thing like helping. So these two are quite same. Linking verb connects the subject with that of the complement. Action verb, there are two things, transitive, intransitive. Transitive verb, the subject will always act on a direct object. That means he is washing his car. So the subject is directly working on an object, that is car. Intransitive does not act on a direct object. Finite, non-finite, finite acts on the according to the number and person of the subject. Non-finite does not act as that, like a verb. Non-finite, rather, it acts as a noun or an adjective, something like that. So these are the things. Now I will give you some examples by which you can understand it more clearly. To know the simple definitions of a finite verb and that of a non-finite verb. So what is a finite? A finite verb, it is a form of verb that is performed by or refers to a subject. So that means a finite verb is performed by or refers to a subject, and it also changes. According to the number or person of the subject. So you have to understand these things very carefully, because it form of a verb that performed or refers to a subject, and it changes according to the number and person of the subject. That means whether it is plural or singular, or the subject is in first person, second person, or third person. So we have to remember these things. And on the other hand, what you can see, a non-finite verb, they do not work as a verb. Forget about everything. They do not work as a verb. What they does, they acts as a, or they work as a noun or an adjective or an adverb. So these non-finite verbs, they act as a noun or an adjective or an adverb. They never changes according to number or person of the subject. Whether the subject is in plural or is in singular, they does not matter in this matter. And whether the person is in first person, second person or third person, it also doesn't matter in non-finite verb. So these are the basic definitions of a finite and non-finite verb. Okay, so you have to understand these things very clearly, because otherwise you cannot make the sentence in a very correct manner. You can take the note of it, you can take a screenshot, whatever you want to remember these things. For example, Amit went to school. This is an example of non-finite verb. Here went is a finite verb. So sorry, this is an example of finite verb. So you have to remember these things. See, for example, Amit went to school. Here the verb represents that subject is performing something and the verb is acting on the person of the subject or on the number of the subject, and it is showing you the exact meaning of the sentence. So you have to remember this thing, because if you make some mistakes, then it will be wrong. For another example, she cooks food. So here also you can see that the verb is showing the exact meaning, what it wants to say or what the subject is doing here. So you have to remember this thing. This is non-finite. So what does non-finite says? That means the non-finite verb does not act as a verb, rather it acts as a noun or an adjective or an adverb. For example, what we can see, suppose Rohit went abroad to study. Here what you can see, infinitive is being used. So here it shows that the person went somewhere else for studying. Therefore, this is an example of a non-finite verb. For another example, as you can see, playing cricket is his only job. That means the boy must be, or the girl must be very much, what should I say, very sporty, and he or she likes to play cricket all the time. That means it is his only work. You children also always play and play continuously and never sit for study. So these are the things. So this is an example of non-finite verb. So now you are going to ask me what this thing is resembling. This is resembling as a gerund. Here in the very beginning of the sentence, when the verb is added with an ing, then it acts as a gerund. So these are the examples of non-finite verb, and these are the examples of a finite verb. So you have to be very careful which is a finite verb, which is a non-finite verb. I hope these examples will make you clear about this concept. That is action verb. And within action verb, there are two different things, transitive and intransitive. Both are very important because several questions do come. Point out the verb and state whether it is transitive or intransitive, or sometimes the questions comes, they circle the transitive verb and underline the intransitive verb. These kind of questions regularly appear in your classes. So you have to know these things very carefully. You have to make your concept very clear that a transitive verb will always have an object, because if you do not find any object, direct object obviously, if you do not find any kind of direct object, then it cannot be a transitive verb. And obviously in intransitive verb, they do not act upon anything. What does intransitive verb do? They may followed by an adjective, adverb or preposition. Okay, so these are the main thing. Must remember that a transitive verb always have a direct object. That means transitive verb always demands that someone or something is being acted upon. But an intransitive verb never does the same thing. Suppose, for example, he washed his car. So here the car is a direct object. And this verb represents that the action of him is implied on his direct object. On the other hand, if I give an example of an intransitive verb, she smiles. That means an action is being done, but not any kind on a direct object. So you have to remember these things. Both the verb is quite different from one another. That means a transitive verb will always demand that someone or something is acted upon, but intransitive verb will never do that thing. So for another example, I woke up at 5 a.m. It's very early in the morning. Several of you must have this habit of getting up early, and it is really good for our health. I woke up at 5 a.m. So this is also an example of intransitive verb. So you have to remember these things because these are very much necessary while you are solving your grammatical questions. Okay, so take this down, note this down, and it will help you. Number 4 and number 5, what does it say? Linking verb and auxiliary verb. Both are performing different functions. What is linking verb doing? What I have told you earlier that it connects the subject with its complement. It adds details about the subject of a sentence. That means whenever you are adding some details, when you are giving some details about the subject, that the person is good. That means you are adding something to that sentence. Those mangoes are worst, but those pineapples are very sweet. So you are adding something, you are giving some details to the sentence. Whenever you are adding something to the sentence, it is being done by the linking verb. Suppose am, is, are, was, were, those are the be verbs. You know about be verb. So these are the things, these are the be verb. Act, feel, remain, appear, seems, smell, etc. The verb acts like this. For example, if I make a sentence for you, she seems angry. That means the person is very angry. She seems angry. The dish smells very delicious, or the dish smells very aromatic. So these are the things which you can know from using this kind of verb. So these verbs are adding some details to the sentence. So whenever the verb is performing that kind of functions, you have to remember those are the linking verb. Obviously remember, it will give a complement only, not anything else. Next, what is auxiliary verb? I have told you earlier that it is a helping verb. Whenever the main verb is being helped by some other thing, some tense, suppose be verb, and obviously there has, have, had. These things will be utilized in these sentences to show that the verb is helping. Suppose, for example, he is going to school. Here, it is acting as this be verb is acting as a auxiliary verb. I have watched the movie. Here, the main verb is being helped by the auxiliary verb. So, these are the things. Auxiliary verb always helps in a sentence, helping the main verb, showing meaningful sentence. So, It extends the main verb by helping to show time, tense and possibility. These are the important things you have to remember. It shows time, tense and possibility. So you have to know these things. Because auxiliary verb is a very important part of our English language and we have to know these things. So be very careful while doing this kind of sentence. Is the modal verb. Modals you have already, I know that you know. So modals, which are modals? Can, could, must, may, must, might, ought to, shall, should, will, would. These are the modals. So what the modal verbs act as? It also acts same as auxiliary verb. It assists the main verb to indicate possibility, potential, ability, permissions, expectations and obligations. So it does these kinds of functions. You have to be very careful because it acts as it indicates the possibility of something. It indicates the potentiality of a person. It indicates the ability of a person or something else. It indicates permission. It requires permissions. Whenever in a sentence if any permission is required, this also been shown by these expectations. What we expect. These are also being shown by modal verb. And last is obligations. You are bound to, you are forced to. These are the obligations which we have. So these can be expressed by these things. For example, one example for permission. Can I come in, sir? So this is a thing which we used to request to our teachers. So these are the things we have to know. These things. You should not do that. This is obligations that you should not do that. He must do his work. This is also an obligations. So this is a thing. He can read well. That means his ability. So these are the examples. Suppose for example, he can read well. It shows his ability. So these are the examples which of a modal verb. The modal verb acts like that. Suppose for example, he must work hard. Obligations. Okay. For example, another one. May I come in? Permission. Seeking permission. So you have to be very careful while you are doing these things because the questions will come like this. The verb will be underlined and you have to show that what kind of verb it is, or the name of the verb will be given and they will ask you the questions that point that the underlined verb in what category it belongs. So if you keep your concept clear about this, those questions will be as easy for you and you will never make any mistake. I hope you have understood these things, and if you have liked this video up till now, please like and share my channel and subscribe it so that I can get inspirations to bring more and more videos like this for your help, and I can be more viable for you so that you can get these things at your fingertips, and I will show you in a most easiest way so that you can understand these things clearly. So I hope that you people are doing very good, and please give your precious like and share and subscribe my channel so that I can bring more and more videos like this. Have a very nice day.